We are bringing home a new pig for our ladies, and it's gonna be a nice little gentleman. So we're gonna create a fence along the line here before the hillside. We're gonna get rid of these panels here because I had all my poultry in there for a little bit. So we're gonna clean that out. We're gonna clean out the pen, and we are going to add a few gates for separation and for possible love shack kind of situation. Mark is just getting all the stuff. We got the gates, we got the panels, we got the T-post. We're kind of ready to go. We're just clearing everything else out to make sure that we can blade this really nicely, get this other panel out of here, and be ready.
What do you think, old Brutus? What do you think, buddy? Huh? So we started putting the T-posts into place and realized we might as well do it the right way that we had planned on from the start. If we're gonna have to pound them in anyway, we may as well go in and get the drill pipe and just pound in the drill pipe. If we're pounding in posts, we might as well pound in the right post. We just haven't had time to get to it. It hasn't been priority enough. But once we found this nice little bore to go put in with our gals, we thought, shoot, we better get that closed off so they got more room to mingle and get used to each other before we put them in for the breeding season. They come like 31, 32 foot length, something like that. So we're gonna cut them into fourths, which gives us about an 8-foot post. So I cut them in half at the steel yard so I can get them home safely without having to tow a trailer in. Now I'm gonna cut them down into the 8-foot approximate post length. Toss them in the back of the truck, take it up, and we'll get them situated to pound them in.
I'm pounding upside to feeling down. When I took a good look around, there's stuff to be learned, body to be turned, it seems. Yes, there is. You got to pay your dues before it's all cookies and cream. Some people want the dinner cooked and served, and somehow that they deserve. Narcissists with a runaway self-esteem. But let me tell you, you got to pay your dues before it's all cookies and cream. But if you're willing to roll up your sleeves, there's no end to what you can achieve. That's something else than what a fool believes. You got to pay your dues before it's all cookies and cream. You got to pay your dues before it's all cookies and cream.
Well, it's finally time to start this project. These panels have been our whole power source since we moved up here. We've got 12 of them connected, and they've just been down here on prop legs holding them. And in the middle of the summer, I adjust the angle down low like that so it's at the appropriate angle, and then by about December I adjust it to the peak angle on the two solstice. Now we're going to start the project of getting these things up on a rack. And our plan is to build basically like a goalpost kind of stand out here, and we'll do a couple of those and we'll link them together. The first things first is to figure out my elevation drop. So right now I'm standing here just on the driveway in front of the shop. I got my laser set up on the ground right here behind me, and I've just got it set pretty low so that I can get an estimation of where the road height is up here on the shoulder. And then I'm gonna go down and shoot the elevation down where the solar panels are at, because that's the drop I have to accommodate with this goalpost structure. I don't know the elevation difference, so I've got to do a little bit of calculating and figuring. So that's why it's important for me to start shooting some grades and know what my elevation drop is. Just at a glance, I'm thinking it's 20 plus, maybe 24 feet, 20 feet. I'll get a baseline here to the road height and know what we stand at right here. My conduit comes out of the top right here for the solar panel wiring to go into the shop. So I'd like my first pole to be real close to that pipe, and then a second pole will be over here farther. I need to maintain enough distance that when the solar panels are up at the wintertime angle, which is pretty steep, I need to make sure that I don't cast a shadow on that back set of panels when they're up at that angle, like I'm trying to mimic on my hands. When they're down like this, I need them to be separated far enough that when they come up, they don't cast a shadow on the back set of panels like that. So I would need to make sure they're spaced far enough apart. So we'll get that stuff figured out after we get some elevations decided and know what we're going to work with. Our idea is that we want these panels up, visible from up here on the road pad, because in the winter time when I'm blowing snow and snow blowing, I want to be able to see where those panels are so that I can direct the chute away from the panels as I'm clearing the snow up here. Being that high, we should never have to worry about clearing the snow off of them. It'll pile up and be fine. But my guess is that we'll be probably about 6 to 10 feet out from the road edge. Okay, so essentially what we have is like this. This red is the conduit that we put in, and then I measured everything. So from here, on top of the driveway as our 0 point, to the pipe, to that conduit, were 3 feet of drop. The point on the hill that looked about right to start the augering with the right amount of distance and everything was 6 feet of drop. We are 24.6 drop from the top of the road. That's a heck of a lot of distance. The big thing that I'm figuring out, and with all these calculations, I have those drill pipes. Those drill pipes are 32 foot long end to end. I would like to cut them off and use one pipe to make the 2 poles. But my thought was to auger this hole for the pole and then push the pole as deep as I could drive it in that hole, and just drive it down as deep as I can. And once it's pretty well stabilized that way, then I would pour the cement around that to act as the footing and the extra berth to help hold the weight and stabilize it in the mountainside.
And the only reason you're doing that is because your excavator can't?
Yeah, so the pipe is 32 feet long, and my excavator from the flat surface can reach up only about 19. That hole's about 6 feet before we augered it, so about 9 or 10 feet below the road surface. So I can probably get to the top of it, or just about. But if I grip it like this, the chains will bind and I can get it pulled up into position like an extension of the bottom of the bucket. I can lift it up and start it down into the hole.
And you're hoping to hit native soil?
I should hit native within about 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet from where we're at now.
Okay.
So my biggest reasoning is I don't know how deep it's going to be. I didn't want to cut it off early and not hit that bottom and bury the whole pipe and need more length. That's why I wanted to just push it in. I don't know how deep that's going to push. It might push 5 feet into the ground after the augering. If that's the case, I'm going to need extra length to get it up high enough. So I just would rather push it and know that we're tall enough.
Okay.
So that's what we're going for. The extra wraps on here are going to bind up. Once it starts pulling, that'll bind and cinch down around that pipe. Then we can grip it, press it right down in quite a ways. Then we can cut it off. And we've got it marked with a few indicators on there to know about how deep we've pushed it, so we know how much length we have left.
Okay.
So that only pushed about 3.5 feet past the bottom of the hole. And I was worried it would go like 5 or 6, so that's why I didn't want to cut it off early. But pretty well, pretty straight, pretty good. So we're just gonna cut it off now at about the 8-foot height. If I'd have gone with my original plan, I would have cut it at 10 feet. So I'd be 2 feet up from that painted 8. And that 8 is about a foot above the pipe. So I can cut it about at the 8 foot. And if we can go another foot in the ground once it's short like that, push it again, we'll probably be fine. I'm gonna push it again anyway at that height and see if we can get any farther.
Cheryl lives down in the south, working at the Waffle House. Has a second job at midnight when it's time to leave. Costs $7.50, never seems to pay the rent. You gotta have a trick or two that's hidden up your sleeve. But living ain't a magic act, days are long and that's a fact. Money still ain't quite enough for her and all the kids. Times have changed, she always says. The good old days are gone and dead. But she tucks the kids into their bed like Mama always did. But it's hard when you ain't got nobody. And it's hard when nowhere feels like home. And it's hard when the world has gone crazy. Seems just like everything means nothing at all.
It may have been a little bit sketchy. But proof of concept, I guess. Worked. Worked well, actually. Now, get a stake or two. Now we'll get a tube formed up around here. We'll pour that deep. And that'll give it extra girth to hold. So that ended up pushing about 4 feet beyond the bottom of the hole. Based on this depth and what I know about over there where the next rack is going, I'm gonna cut the other pipe before I do that, because now I know I have a baseline of how deep that's gonna push. So now I can work with that and just go to that depth.
He was laid off just last week, making parts for big machines that made a lot of fancy things that folks don't buy no more. Now he's in an old motel. Lately he don't sleep too well, holding down a darkness that he's never felt before. But some nights when it's getting late, the diner by the interstate serves him up a nice hot plate of filling for time. Cheryl's always working there, the big blue eyes and auburn hair. She treats him nice and seems to care about what's on his mind. But it's hard when you ain't got nobody. It's hard when nowhere feels like home. Yeah, it's hard when the world has gone crazy. Seems just like everything means nothing at all. We try with everything we have just to make it by. Yeah, we try. Try with all our heart and soul just to feel alive. Cheryl says, will that be all? A jukebox plays a country waltz. Jim is feeling mighty tall and he asks her to dance. And Cheryl says, oh, I don't know, but round and round the floor they go, holding hands and dancing slow. Feels just like romance. It's hard when you ain't got nobody. And it's hard when nowhere feels like home. And it's hard when the world has gone crazy. And it seems just like everything means nothing at all. Yeah, it seems just like everything means nothing at all.
There. That's pretty all right. Vacuum out some of the loose stuff. And we'll have ourselves a 4.5 foot deep, which will get us over 3 feet on the exposed side, with 4 feet below it of pipe in the ground. That'll work great. That will work great. We're gonna do one more over there. The other factor I had to consider with these racks was the distance between the two racks. If you think of it like this, and the sun angle hits here, it's going to cast a shadow off the top of the panel onto my hands, like I explained earlier. So that's like some advanced geometry or basic level trigonometry. The panels are 80 inches long, so the steepest angle is going to cast the longest shadow, and that's the December shadow. That means I've got a 66-degree angle with an 80-inch vertical on the panel. So the trigonometry works out to get me the length across the ground that shadow will be, and that ends up right at 9 feet. So I'm going to space the racks 12 feet just to have a few extra, just so I don't have anything to worry about ever. Well, that's like fishing. All right. I'm gonna come down here. I think I'd rather have it a little farther because now we're getting to where I want to build this road surface out a little farther, just for more maneuverability. So I think I'm gonna go for here anyway. That's what we're gonna do. Okay, I like that better. Looks good. Let's do it. We are 12 foot 3.5 inches. When I measured the elevation, I couldn't believe it, but this pipe is 1/4 of an inch taller than that pipe right now. 1/4 of an inch. It's pretty dang close for a whole bunch of eyeball measuring. Those are set, those are perfect. I've got those 12-inch C-channels, and I'm going to notch a saddle into this to rest that C-channel on. That way I can get a full weld across the bottom and then a weld up the backside with the support of the backing of this pipe on both pipes. Now we got to get concrete in these holes. I've got some bag concrete and I can mix it and pour this. It's going to add up to quite a bit of concrete. That's going to be 1/3 to 1/2 yard. And that one the same. So it's going to take the better part of an entire pallet, 2/3 of it at least, to fill these. So I'm either going to mix them with bag concrete and just go through a whole bunch of bags and mix it and pour it, or we'll see if maybe we can squeeze in a concrete truck and we'll form up a little bit more along the shop, enough to get these two and something. Guess it depends on how much hustle I got in me and what kind of availability the truck has.